Before I get into this video, I have to say that I love Russell Wilson. He's perennially underrated and one of the greatest quarterbacks of his generation. He would be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired today. He's one of the few unique talents in the NFL. All that said, and Seahawks fans, you may want to tune out here for a second. Up until this year, he has never been deserving of an MVP vote. Now, before you get all up in arms, that doesn't mean he hasn't had truly elite seasons. He's just mainly had the unfortunate luck of going up against other players having historic years at the same time. It's the same curse that Drew Brees has been afflicted with. However, with Seattle's coaching staff finally committing to a pass-first approach this season, Wilson looks poised to do what he's always had the talent to do. The narrative that was started by Warren Sharp on Twitter that says it's blasphemous that Wilson has never received an MVP vote is quite honestly kind of ridiculous when you actually take a second to break it down. You just have to ask yourself if Wilson deserved it over the guy who won. In 2012 and 2013, Wilson came into the league as one of the most efficient passers in football. However, great as Wilson was, those Seahawks teams still centered themselves on their legendary defense and Marshawn Lynch. Wilson couldn't compare to Peyton Manning's 55 touchdown season in 2013, which somehow didn't garner a unanimous finish due to a lone vote for Tom Brady in one of his worst years ever. But I digress. The year prior, a running back won the award, which y'all know my thoughts on, but Manning was still far and away the most deserving quarterback that year as well. In 2014, 6 players received MVP votes, none of which were Wilson, but it was arguably his worst NFL season, finishing 14th in PFF grading, so he wasn't even in the discussion. Aaron Rodgers, the man who won the award, had the second best season of his career behind his 2011 campaign. So while many voters were undecided, they shouldn't have been. Rodgers was the runaway winner. 2015 is one of the years Wilson has a decent case for, but again, other quarterbacks also had historic years. Cam Newton leading the Panthers to a 15-1 record while scoring 45 touchdowns was enough to convince 48 voters that he was the man. I personally would have gone with Carson Palmer, as he was the most consistent quarterback all season with a legendary deep passing year. Wilson, meanwhile, had a torrid finish to the season, throwing 24 scores to just 1 interception over his final 7 games, of which Seattle won 6. However, his sluggish start to the year with 10 touchdowns to 7 picks with a 4-5 record is ultimately what held him back. 2016 was another year Wilson didn't really have a shot at the award. He was just 15th in QBR in a year in which both Matt Ryan and Tom Brady had historic years. Ryan ultimately won out due to the fact that Brady missed 4 games to suspension. 2017 was a year where there was no clear winner. I mean, Todd Gurley received 8 votes for crying out loud. But it was the one season in Wilson's career in which his team missed the playoffs. That's just not going to cut it, even if you do lead the league in touchdown passes, as Wilson did. Brady ultimately ran away with the award again after Carson Wentz suffered a late season injury. In 2018, Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdown passes in his first year as a starter. I mean, what more do I even have to say? Drew Brees was neck and neck with Mahomes until a late season drop-off, and nobody else even entered the conversation. Wilson threw 35 scores to 7 picks, and the Seahawks returned to the postseason, but he still didn't come close to those two. 2019 was the best argument Wilson had for winning MVP. It's funny because it was just the second year in NFL history that a player won the award unanimously. Lamar Jackson ran away with the award, but he was neck and neck with Wilson for much of the year. Russ carried what was a pretty poor Seahawks team to an 11-5 record while throwing 31 scores and just 5 interceptions. In fact, he was PFF's top-graded quarterback and MVP for the season. However, as has often been the case with Wilson, he once again had a poor stretch of play which tainted his chances of winning the award. This time it came at the end of the season when Jackson was heating up. Over his final 7 games, Wilson threw just 9 scores to 4 picks, fumbled 4 times, and got sacked 26 times. The Seahawks lost 3 of their final 4 games. Meanwhile, Jackson had 24 touchdowns to just 1 pick over that stretch of play. He led the league in scoring passes and led the Ravens to the greatest rushing attack in NFL history. By week 17, it was a no-brainer. Russell Wilson has never received an MVP vote because he has never been the most deserving player in a season. Ben Roethlisberger also has never garnered an MVP vote despite some spectacular seasons, but nobody bemoans that. Yes, there have been less deserving players than Wilson to get MVP votes of their own in this time period, most notably Wilson's own teammate Bobby Wagner and a pair of Cowboys running backs in DeMarco Murray and Ezekiel Elliott, who each split votes with their more deserving quarterbacks. Those votes were utterly ridiculous no matter how you spin it, just like Derek Carr's 6 votes in 2016 were. However, just because other votes were flubbed, that doesn't mean another one needed to also be screwed up to prove a point. Carr should not have received those votes in 2016, but neither should Wilson have. Matt Ryan deserved them. The NFL's MVP voting system allows for 50 separate voters to vote for one player each. They don't rank a 1, 2, and 3. Perhaps the results would be more telling if they did use a point system, but they don't. No one should waste a vote out of pity for someone who is not the most deserving player, even if said player put up a year that might be deserving of the award in any other season. I hate this contrived controversy so much because Russell Wilson is such a great player, and now people try to defend him with the most baseless, silly argument. We can appreciate Wilson's greatness without inventing meaningless things to get people mad over. Hopefully 2020 is the remedy to this social media derived plague because Wilson looks like he might finally have a real shot at the award, or at the very least, some votes. I don't know if Pete Carroll or Brian Schottenheimer read Twitter at all, but for some reason they have decided to finally let Russ cook this season, and it has been glorious. Through 5 games, Wilson has thrown a league-leading 19 touchdown passes. For comparison's sake, Peyton Manning had thrown 20 at this game marker in his record-breaking 2013 season. The Seahawks went 3-0 to start the season despite allowing 86 points over that stretch, solely because of the brilliance of Wilson. Yes, the Falcons and Cowboys defenses have been atrocious to start the year, but Wilson also threw 5 scores against the Patriots in a classic Sunday night game. Wilson's counting stats have dipped a bit in the previous 2 games, but he's still near the top of the league in every passing category. Against the Vikings in the rain, the Seahawks had a horrid start. He had just 13 net passing yards at the half, and Seattle trailed 13-0. Of course, he immediately got the team back into the game in the second half with a pair of scoring tosses, before Minnesota went back up 5 points late in the fourth. Say what you want about how cliche they are, but voters remember what they call MVP moments. And that's precisely what Wilson had when he engineered a surgical 13-play, 94-yard drive in a minute and a half to win the game, on which he converted 2 separate 4th downs, including the game-winning touchdown to DK Metcalf. It's hard to even say much else about the drive, impossible as it seemed, because with Wilson that sort of thing has just become expected. He is magical. If Wilson keeps playing at or near this level and the Seahawks keep winning games, he is guaranteed to finally receive that coveted MVP vote. Wilson has historically been known to break out for lethal hot stretches of play like this, before ultimately coming back to earth for a short rough patch, so it remains to be seen if that will be the case once again. What is in his favor, however, is the fact that the Seahawks coaching staff truly seems invested in letting the offense run through him for once. With Seattle fielding one of the worst defenses in the league, Wilson will have plenty of opportunities to add to his box score stats. Wilson has always also been one of the more efficient passers in football, regardless of opportunity. The difference between his current first place completion percentage over expected number and Derek Carr's second place number is bigger than the gap between second place and 16th place. Obviously, it's early, but as of now, Wilson is the clear frontrunner after his top competitor, Aaron Rodgers, laid an egg against the Buccaneers. Before that game, Rodgers looked back to his old 2014 self, but to be fair, he did play against one of the easiest pass defense schedules in the league, so who knows where he will go from here. Through Week 6, I might actually argue that Ryan Tannehill is Wilson's number 2 for the MVP award. Crazy, right? Who could have seen that coming? Not me. Regardless of who winds up racing Wilson to the finish, it will be a fun contest to watch. One thing I am certain of, however, is that after 2020, we will never have to hear about Russell Wilson not having an MVP vote ever again.